Hello chaps, Troy Francis here with another video. Is it important that you speak the same language as the person you date? That was a question that was posed on Twitter or X by Alexander of DatePsych, the DatePsych account. Okay. Is it important that you speak the same language as people you date? What's the answer to that question? This is something that I uniquely have some experience with because, as people will know if they watch this channel, I've spent the last few years traveling pretty extensively. And actually, even before that, I have dated quite a number of women who are not English. All right. Now, many of them have been in the United Kingdom, and actually their English has been very good. But I've certainly dated, a number of Polish women, Ukrainian, people from different places all over the world, basically. But certainly when you're traveling a lot, you do come into this issue of the language barrier. Okay. And actually, I think in his tweet, Alexander mentions passport bros. I think it's actually addressed to so-called passport bros. Passport bros, if you don't know, are basically guys who travel in order to date, or at least date while they are traveling. Okay. And kind of make a thing about it. And he's highlighting an issue that a lot of guys, when they talk about or they consider coming onto a boot camp with us or consider doing some training with myself or Tusk or any of these people in a foreign country, often a question that comes up is, well, what about the language barrier? What if she doesn't speak the same language as me? What's the answer to this? Well, the answer is it kind of depends on how much of a long-term thing you want it to be. Okay. If it's a short-term, very casual thing where you go for, a couple of dates, you sleep together a couple of times, it's fun, there's no expectation of it being anything more than that, then to be quite honest, if you don't speak the same language, it doesn't matter that much. There are also as well varying degrees of not speaking the same language. The first thing you have to bear in mind is that in many, many countries in the world now, people, particularly younger people, will speak some English. Okay. So we're very fortunate. If you're watching this and you're English or American or English is your first language, as it is mine, we've kind of just lucked out somehow. And our mother tongue, our main language, has become the lingua franca of the entire planet, which is very fortunate because my language skills are not great. So firstly, often you're going to meet women who do have some grasp of English, even if it's very small, or they at least know a few words, or they know a few phrases, or they can recognize a few words and phrases. Okay. So the first thing is that there's going to be a varying degree of their proficiency in the language anyway. Okay. And also as well, of course, maybe you know some Spanish, or maybe you know some Polish, or maybe you know some Portuguese, or whatever it is. And then you're able to say a few words in her language as well. But let's put that to one side. We're assuming you don't speak her language and she doesn't know very much English, or functionally she doesn't really understand English at all. Okay. Now, your great friend in that situation is Google Translate. Okay. Or another translate app that you can obviously get on your phone. I have had whole mini relationships with women where she didn't speak any English, but we were able to communicate quite well by translating stuff on Google Translate, by sort of motioning to each other, make each other understand through hand movements and things, little bits of broken English, little bits of broken parts of their language together. All of those things together, we were able to communicate quite well. We could make ourselves understood. We could have fun. We could joke. And actually, there's something quite funny about using Google Translate when you're in a dating situation. So I remember one time I was in Russia a couple of years ago, and I'd met this girl in Sochi, which is the Russian Ibiza. I was there with James Tusk, and I met this girl, and we met during the daytime, and we arranged I got her number and stuff, and then we arranged to meet up that evening in a shisha lounge there in Sochi. And this shisha lounge, it's one of the great hidden gems of the world. It's one of the greatest shisha lounges on the planet that I've ever been to, and certainly Tusk's ever been to. Just amazing, fantastic shisha, great vibe in there, great atmosphere. Anyway, so I met up with this girl, and she came down to the shisha lounge, and that night, and obviously she speaks no English, I don't speak any Russian, so we're using Google Translate. And what is quite cool is that you can start to be quite flirty and quite cheeky on Google Translate, and you can almost push the flirty envelope more than you normally would, because there's something funny about it. It's kind of funny for her because these translations, you're saying these like slightly flirty, naughty things, and they're coming out probably in some fairly broken way in her language. And so it's quite funny, and it's quite funny because you're using a sort of this formal translation tool, and then you're sort of translating something that's sort of a bit naughty and a bit fun, So that was a really great evening. We had a great time. I was saying, I can tell you look very nice on the surface. I can tell you're kind of naughty underneath. I can see that you've got this bad girl vibe going on, blah, blah, blah. She's messaging back, no. And, it was really funny. We had fun. And then we danced a bit and stuff, and obviously smoking the shisha. And then we went back to where I was staying, which is over the road, hotel over the road. And I saw her a couple of times on that trip. And it really, she was very, very keen to see me again. Okay, she was very keen to see me the second time. This time she came to the hotel, we went swimming, there was a spa there and stuff like that. We hung out that night, and and then unfortunately we had to move on. I think we went over to Moscow. So I said goodbye to her, but we stayed in touch and on message and stuff. And she again was very, very keen to see me again. She really wanted me to come back. It didn't happen in the end, unfortunately. And now obviously the geopolitical situation has changed somewhat. But yeah, and as I say, we didn't speak the same language, but it was absolutely fine. Okay, in terms of the purposes of casual dating. There was another woman that I saw fairly recently in Warsaw, and we were actually dating for a few months. Again, sort of casually, but we would see each other quite regularly because I was in Warsaw a lot last year, and we'd hang out every week. And again, her English was not very, very small. Her English is very small, and my Ukrainian. She tried to teach me some Ukrainian words and phrases, and my language skills are pretty remedial at best. So I picked up a couple of things, but it was, and that was also fine. And that relationship or that kind of dating thing went on for, as I say, 2 or 3 months, really. And it wasn't a problem. We could make ourselves understood, with this mixture of Google Translate, whatever language she did have, just pointing to things or gesturing and stuff like that. And it can be quite fun. But what starts to happen, okay, and this is the drawback, is after a period of time, it starts to become a bit of a chore, and it stops being fun in the end, and it starts to become a bit frustrating. And particularly, I think particularly in these situations for the girl, because basically I speak none of their language, and probably if anybody's going to speak anything, probably they're going to speak a little bit of English. So it's almost like she can probably understand a bit of what I'm saying, but I can understand like zero of what she's saying in her language. So the onus is always on her to either translate what she's saying or to try to translate what I'm saying to her. And that can be quite tiring for the girl, for the woman. And I'm sure if it was the other way around, it would be tiring for me. And the other problem, of course, is if you're with somebody and you're with somebody in dating capacity, even if it's not that serious, you want to kind of be able to express yourself coherently. You kind of want to be able to sort of express yourself in an authentic way. And I think that, my experience is that women have started to find that very frustrating. And actually, there was another woman that I was dating sometime before that who was also Ukrainian, and we saw each other a number of times. Similar sort of situation. Her English was not great. And I remember one time she actually wrote, as we were chatting on Google Translate, she actually wrote to me and she said, "I wish you could speak my language, because actually I'm a really cool girl, but you can't see that because we don't understand each other." And it was quite a profound thing. And of course, I said, no, I get it. You're a cool girl. Of course. But she was right, because if you can't have a proper conversation, then, her character, the way that she perceived the world, the way that she operated in the world, her consciousness was really an enigma to me. If we're being honest, I didn't know where she was coming from, really, on anything other than kind of romantically and sexually, and that can be great for a while, of course, but ultimately, I think we all want something a bit more than that. And certainly, when she said, the way that she said it, it just kind of touched me, because it was like, listen, I'm a cool girl, and you just won't know, because we can't understand each other. You could see that frustration. You could see how it was getting to her, and I thought, shit, she's kind of right, isn't she? Now, so the message is, if you want to get more serious in a situation like this, you're going to have to learn the language, or she's going to have to learn your language. Okay, I mean, if you're living in her country, then really the onus is on you to learn her language. So if you're living in Colombia and she speaks Spanish and you don't speak Spanish, you want to get serious with her, you're going to have to bite the bullet and learn Spanish. Okay. But that's if you want it to go longer term. That's if you want it to be something more solid and meaningful, let's say. If it is literally, you're just hanging out, you have sex a couple of times, you have some fun, you go to the party together, you don't need to learn her language. So you need to really just think about what you want. And it might change. I mean, you could meet somebody and they speak a different language, and you really fall for them. You're like, shit, I'm going to have to learn Portuguese now. And that's just something that you're going to have to do if you want to try and push things forward with her. In the short term, you don't need to. What I would say, and what my friend Tom always used to say, is that it is probably not, you shouldn't really learn a language just because you want to try and meet girls, to be honest. I mean, if you're just going for short trips somewhere, it's a little bit try hard to start learning Spanish just so that you can say a few lines in order to try and, have sex with somebody. I think that's not quite the right motivation. But if you're considering moving somewhere, or if you're considering spending more time somewhere, then of course, at that point, it is worth it. It's beholden on you really to learn the language, but you should have the correct reasons for doing that, I believe. I mean, Torero used to say that it was almost sort of pedestalizing her in a way to make a huge effort to speak her language in order to try to get with her, and he felt that the more dominant frame was just that you would speak and she would have to be the one who had to try to understand you. And I get where he was coming from with that, certainly for short-term things. So I wouldn't suggest, if you're planning a trip, to Mexico or something, I wouldn't spend years and years trying to learn Spanish before you go. Just go and just see what happens, right? There's plenty of women there that speak English. But do bear in mind that if you start seeing someone regularly and you kind of want this to be more of a thing, then you're going to have to learn the language. And, I have friends, a friend of mine, his girlfriend is from Venezuela, and they're in a, long-term relationship now. They're living together, but he's had to, and his Spanish is pretty good, and he's had to learn Spanish because that's, there's no other way really to maintain any kind of serious relationship if you don't speak the same language as the person. It's just not doable. So short-term fun, never mind the language, doesn't matter. If you want anything long-term, more serious, get your dictionary out, get your vocab book out, get your audio tapes out, or whatever it is people use. Start watching some movies in that language and learn that language. But why do you want a long-term relationship anyway? Because the world's like a box of chocolates and there's plenty of variety out there. Anyway, with that being said, if you haven't already, do subscribe to this channel. Give me a like, comment on the video beneath. Let me know what you think. You can book a free call with me if you would like to discuss coaching. Okay, there's a free 15-minute call option. Link below. And you can also grab my collection of 11 books, which is called Renegade Dating Blueprint, which covers all of this stuff in great detail. Again, the link is below. I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.